Hemshech Chaim Beis, Volume 1. We're at the end of Discourse 45. Is it 45? Ekev. Page Shin Samach Gimel 363, middle of chapter 178. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Discourse 44. Discourse 44. So we're middle of a discussion of a dialogue. A very moving dialogue between the soul as it's trapped in the darkness of this world, speaking to the part of the soul that's not trapped, to the soul as it is, as it proceeded coming down to the body. Which is interesting. It's based on the Likutei Torah of the Alter Rebbe, the Maimer Shcheirani, which I'll soon elaborate a little more about. And the context is, let's start with the context, then we'll go to the details, is we're talking about Hiskashus, the Zohar, Tlas Kishrin. There are three bonds, three knots. And the word is Kishrin, is the word Kesher. Yisrael, Araisa, Kutsha B'richu. Yisrael Miskashram Ba'araisa, Araisa B'Kutsha B'richu. And that too is in the context of discussing two dimensions in Torah, the Klal and Prat of Torah, which is connected to the interface that we began learning earlier about Ak, Adam Kadmon. And all this was a continuation of the discussion difference between the Ovis and Matan Torah. So what we have here is the interface between the divine and existence. Talked about Eir HaBligvul, Eir HaGvul. Eir HaBligvul brings Bittul into existence. Eir HaGvul brings godliness on our terms. That's the gist of it. That, to understand that, he explained the difference between Ovis and Matan Torah. The Ovis is Elikus as it relates to existence. The pipes, realigning it. Obviously, expanding it, Kel Shaddai. To the point that Ad Sheivlus Lemer Die. Enough. But it's an expansion of that. The Matan Torah introduces a Chodesh, the Yichud Chodesh, Yichud Abba V'Ima Elon, as opposed to Yichud Abba V'Ima Tatoin. The higher Chachma Bina, as opposed to the lower Chachma Bina. This introduces something from the divine perspective. To explain that, he began discussing Atzilus as the interface. Eiros and Kelim, Chachma Elah, Chachma Tata. I'm just summing it up. And then he moved that really Chachma of Torah is Chachma of Ak. I spoke about Adam Kadmon being the interface, the Klal and the Prat. Adam Kadmon, the Skira Achas, the picture, snapshot. And then there's the Prat, how the details come out of it. How Ak is higher than time and space, but is the root of time and space, in the sense that it encompasses all time and space. And so much the root actually encompassing all time and space. Then there's Pnimius Ak, which again is reflective of the divine. It reflects Atik of Ein Sof. And Chitzenius Ak, which relates more to existence. Then he went back to Torah to start elaborating on Torah. Kutsha B'richu, Stakel Baraisa Baralma. Kutsha B'richu is the Bligvul, Eir Ein Sof. Looks into Torah, which is the blueprint, the interface, and creates a world. Understand this? We went into the whole discussion of Torah. There's Chitzenius HaTorah and Primus HaTorah. Inner and outer dimension of Torah. David HaMelech Zmiris Ha'ilichu Kecha Zmiris Karyisulahu. He focused on the Torah as it relates to existence. When the truth is, V'hoi Eya Etzlei Amein Shashuim Lefonov. These are God's Etzlei. This is God's delights. It's His nurtured entity. That's the true nature of Torah. And that in turn nurtures Neshamas Yisrael, which is Al Tikra Amein Ela Oiman, like he brings in Tanya that he elaborated. Then he discussed this in Aveda, that this is the two levels of Torah. Torah in the morning, when we that Torah before Tefillah, which is, as he says, Mikara, Ovid Ki Ovid Inish Adaita Denavsha Ovid. Again, as Torah relates to you, as a Likus relates to us. It's all the same thing. Eira Bligvul, Eira Gvul. It's all, you can just replace the words. Eira Bligvul is reflecting the divine on divine terms. Eira Gvul is Elikus as it's on our terms. So in Aveda, Torah, as it brings Elikus into you, Miskashan, Yisrael Miskashan Baraisa, and through that, to connecting to Torah, that's the simple interpretation in that Zohar, The Elokus is connected to them, and he explains at length why, because the neshama, as it comes down below, gets concealed and can become consciously disconnected, so it needs to reconnect. Then there's tefillah, and then there's Torah after davening. As he explained, the higher level of Torah after davening is not to quench any thirst, but it's l'shem ha-Torah. Torah l'shma means l'shem ha-Torah, to bring Elokus into Torah. So it's again in the perspective from the divine. The Torah is divine delight, not what it does for you. So here we have in Torah these two dimensions. And then in chapters 177, he began going back to the Hiskashas. So now, when the Neshamas Yisrael, who ostensibly, as they descend below, are concealed in the body and the animal soul, the faculties are concealed, and they now connect to Torah. By studying Torah, they get elevated and reconnect to the divine. He says, this reconnection, this Hiskashrus, which is not Dveikus. Dveikus, Eira Meir, you can't say you tie a knot between the light and its source. Because they're original, they are naturally and intrinsically bound. So it's called Dveikus. Dveikus means it's attached in a natural way, you can say. Hiskashrus is taking two things that are separate and connecting. So on one hand, it may seem this is the lower connection, but now he's explaining, and that's what we're in the middle of, that when you connect, that connection achieves something that the connection of Neshama Lamaila before it came down didn't have. And to explain this, he goes into Neshama Belakus. This is the Yudis and Neshama Beguf Shcheira Ani V'Nova, which is the Maimer of L'Kutei Torah. Shcheira Ani, there's two Shcheira Anis in L'Kutei Torah Shir Shirim. The second one, this discussion, and he tries to B'nei Yerushalayim, as I elaborated yesterday, the daughters of Yerushalayim. This lashon is Shcheira Ani V'Nova B'nei Yerushalayim. Who's speaking? So he says, Knesset Yisrael, the way the Neshama comes down below, is speaking to B'nei Yerushalayim and saying, I am dark but beautiful, even though I come down this dark world. B'nei Yerushalayim, he explained in two different ways, is Malchus. So the Neshama says they are still in a state of gestation in Malchus. So they're already beginning to be developed as a fetus, spiritually speaking, to prepare them to come down to this world. But they're still in Atzilus. So there still are B'nei Yerushalayim. They're B'nais, because they're already children, they're already like a product of the higher levels of Atzilus. But they're Yerushalayim, they're still Yerushalayim. Whereas the Neshama, as it comes down below, does not have Yira on its own. And that's what it tells the B'nai Yerushalayim. It's very difficult for me, I don't have Yira. I'm shched, I'm dark, and they explain two reasons why it's so difficult to achieve Yira in this world. Number one, because for that you need to have some recognition of the divine, some familiarity. And we don't have that on our own. And secondly, because we have to deal with the zichuch, the battle of the zichuch hachumri, to refine the gases, the crassness of existence. So now in chapter 178 we continue, and he says, this is what the Neshama says, Lamata, Agam, Deshcherani, nevertheless, V'nova. I'm still beautiful. And he explains what that means. Because this distance that the Neshama senses, its darkness, in turn creates a deep thirst and shukah, and that's why the Neshama is called Kala, Meloshen Kiloyan, Kolsa Nafshi. It's pining to. Kolsa Nafshi. And this is a passion and a fire that comes only because it came down and feels the darkness and its distance. And he explained, this is the difference in Achesi Kala we find in Shir Hashirim. Achesi is a sister. He says sibling love is very profound love. It's timidis. It's constant. But it's kridus, he calls it. It's not no ischachus in it. It doesn't have any passion involved. Because it's a consistent, it's like, in a way it's like dveikus compared to ischachus, you can say. It's a natural connection that's always there. Kala, on the other hand, is a stranger. And a Kala, on the other hand, as he says, is davar nifrit. And not timidis. It's not constant. There's changes in it. And there could even be, God forbid, a hefsek. You know where that lashon is from? And we were sentenced with being sent away and with the divorce. On the other hand, precisely because of its separation, its distance, when there's the Ava, it reveals a far deeper, from the deeper parts of the soul, it reaches a higher level, and through this you bring a Er Chadash. And this he calls Yichud Pnimi of Abba ve'Ima. Remember we spoke about Matan Torah, Yichud Pnimi, Yichud Chitzeni. Then he asked, L'cheira Yisun Hazeh, this advantage in the Summer is primarily in Ava. In Yira, what the advantage is, we spoke that Yira requires some type of recognition of the divine. That recognition is higher above. So why Yira also? So it says, so Yira seems to be there's no advantage in the soul below. It says, Omnam Yeshleimer, when there's Yigiyah, Bol L'Pchinas Yira, Yesh B'Zeh Gam Ken Yisun. There's also an advantage because the Yira below is complete nullification of yourself. The Yira above, he compares it to Ein Eid and Kula Kamei. Eir senses that it's completely nullified in the presence of the divine. But it can't say Ein Eid, there's nothing else. Because Eir is a naturally bottle. When the Yesh down below, when we come to recognition of the divine, we say there's nothing else. Eir can say, I am completely nullified, but maybe there's room for something else. But when the Yesh is bottle, it may be a lower type of bittul, but it pronounces, it announces, it declares Ein Eid. So we see, Anochas Atzmuse means completely setting yourself aside, putting yourself aside. Nimtza, the discussion of Sham Lamata B'Kush Yesh B'Yusun L'Gab B'Kmoshi L'Mayla, Hagam Shesham B'Bchinas Achdus. That's where we stopped. So both in love and in awe, there's an advantage of the soul below. So of course, if you're measuring in quantity awe, obviously one who recognizes the divine more is going to be more in awe. But if you talk about a type of, let's call it a qualitative dimension of recognizing the divine omnipresence, that divine is everything, in a way it's deeper down below. Yeah. In a way you could say, because Eir, or Neshamas Lamaila, at the end of the day, they definitely recognize that they're nullified compared to God, but you can't say that they don't exist, because they have a closeness. Remember, the soul above is Bnei Yerushalayim, or even higher, Bonim, or Achim, Reim, we learned. So there's a closeness. So even when the bittul comes because you're far greater than I am, but I also have quality. So it's not a total Ein Eid Movade, like Ein Eid. The Yesh, when the Yesh comes to recognize that it's nothing, it really recognizes a complete infinite distance. There's nothing in common at all. So in a way the Yesh reveals Atzmus more than the Eir does, for that reason. Because the Eir, you could still say, has that element of relationship. The Eir reveals. It reveals. It's nullified. I'm nothing compared to my source. But I am revealing my source. A yesh initially is far away. It's an ego. It doesn't have any. Doesn't relate to the source. But when it, through Yegi, as he says, works hard in recognizing that existence doesn't matter, the bittul is a far deeper one because it's stating that there's nothing in common to Atzmus. Atzmus is beyond everything. It doesn't spell this out exactly, but this is what it's. Yeah. Now, the surprise I was going to share. Just a surprise. I don't know if it's going to enjoy. To me, it was enjoyable. It was gratifying to discover. I looked at Likutei Torah. It's the source of this. So Likutei Torah, as I said, has there's two Shcheranis, and the second one has a beer, and then there's a called beer beis, a second beer. They were said in the summer months of Tav Kufayin Aleph, Tav Kufayin Aleph, and then Vayera Tav Kufayin Beis. I think is the second beer. Also maybe Ekev. Anyway, so there in the second beer of Shcherani, I started reading it and I realized how this mamish connects to the whole Ayin Beis directly.
100 years before.
Yeah.
198 years.
So,
Well,
Ayin Beis. This is Ayin Gimel. He means Alter Rebbe is 100 years before this, and this is 100 years before us. Yeah, no, that's why the beauty of it. I love to see the connection of the Alter Rebbe and then the Rebbe Rashab and then just... No. All I'm making is the connections. The truth is anybody can do it, you just have to dig. So looking there, it says, it's the whole beer of the second beer in Shchera, and he begins like this. that you need a mamutza between Elokus and Welt. The whole thing starts with interface. And he says, what's the mamutza kesed? He says there's the higher level of kesed and the lower level of kesed. And then he says the same thing in neshamas. There's neshamas as they are not silas, ibur, as neshamas as they come in biyah. That's the mamutza. So it's mamish the whole techen of Ayin Beis. He's not translating it. The beauty of it is, until now he was talking about it first in Askala and in Svidus. Then he talked about it in Elamus, Atzilus, Ak. Then he talked about it in Teda. And now he's talking about it in Neshamas. So it's mamish kafta v'ferach. I just extremely eloquent.
But it's lower than Mucha. It's not the same parallel.
See, you're going to mathematics again. It's a mamutza. It's two levels. One relates to divine and one relates to existence. The Neshama says they are an Ibur, in a state of gestation in Atzilus. They're still in Atzilus Dika level. And then it becomes Malchus of Atzilus, becomes Keser of Biyah. And those Neshamas, then they enter Biyah and they become Shcheirani. So when the Neshama is saying Shcheir, I'm dark, that's how the Neshama is in existence. And it's speaking to the Neshama that's beyond Shcheir, the Neshama as an Atzilus. He compares this to the Mutza. All the Mutzaim are connected. They're all connected. They're all about connecting two existences. And I told you, only in Aveda you're going to see the difference. You're not going to figure it out mathematically. In Aveda, every level has its interface. When you right now, today, will forego a certain indulgence and do something a little more divine, you've made an interface. So you'll say, is that the level of Atik before Ak? Maybe not, but all interfaces connect. You've made that jump. You have to apply this personally. Personally, we all have steps to make. It's stepping stones. Where your stepping stone is, each of us is in a different place, but everyone has stepping stones. That's the whole point of connecting God. Someone say, we live in the 9 days. We are meant to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. Does everyone do it the same way? No, it depends where you're at. For some people, Shchanti B'Seicha means bringing some books into their house and start to learn. For others, they do that already, so they have to bring more levels. It's a constant journey. But the beauty of what I want to say is, and then I look it up in chapter 27, he actually brings this Maimer Shcheirani regarding the 10 hidden spheres. So it just all ties together. That's what I wanted to just add for the record. So in other words, the souls also reflect, there's the soul as it is in a higher level, it's more affected by the source. And then there's the soul as it comes down, where it's the Shcheirani. And the point here is that when it comes down, you can reach a level that's higher than the way. In other words, Eir HaGvul can reach deeper than Eir HaBlikvul. But Eir HaBlikvul informs Eir HaGvul, because Eir HaBlikvul introduces Bittul into existence, because it's God's language. Eir HaGvul is our language, the divine speaking our language. It's like Havaya and Elakim.
So Shcheirani is always the bottom of the interface, so to speak.
The lower level, yeah, the soul coming into Shcheirani, meaning I'm dark and I'm distant and this, and yet, V'nova. And yet I'm beautiful because.
You could say that to Ati, so to speak.
Yes, that's correct, absolutely. Here he's speaking about it, Malchus of Atzilus going into Biyah, but absolutely, relatively speaking, yes, you could. Yeah, that's well stated, correct.
But the Shcheira is the way that it's done already.
Yeah, because it's a concealment. Shcheira means concealment. The Tzimtzum can say it to the Lifnei Tzimtzum.
It's not Atik.
No, he meant to say Arich speaking to Atik. He meant to say that's relative. Yeah. That's what he meant. Yeah. You could say it on any. You could say even the 10 hidden spheres compared to the sphere of Saint Ketz too. I've not seen that anywhere specifically, but hypothetically, that's in chapter 27.
Is higher than Esau spheres of Gnosis?
Yeah. Out of sphere of Saint Ketz come 10 specifics. Shiratz Mibikeach. So in chapter 27, which is a very fundamental chapter, all as it is, he speaks about it. I'm sorry, chapter 27. He actually brings, just to the record, look on page 43, a parenthesis in the middle of the page. He says, so just to give you a method in learning, when the Rebbe Rashab quotes it with a Pedic, rest assured it's fundamental, and that he not only looked in it, but he's quoting it. So I always register anything that he actually brings, because it means it's going to appear again somewhere. I mean, just as any scholar knows this. When you study something and someone's quoting something, and then he writes, even though it's 100, 200 pages later, and then suddenly you see the same idea from that mimer, it's not far stretched to say that's connected. That's why when I read it, my Nefesh Habamas liked it too, I must admit. And there he talks about exactly that. He talks about Esas Sfiras Hagnuzis, Aliyas Sh'olah B'Ritzei Nepal. He talks about the Mamutza.
The Alter Rebbe,
1 second. Yeah. It's the same. Yeah, the Min Kanaf, the whole Min Kanaf. But Daku sits all the way up there, yeah. I have to look it up with Geren Shcherani. But it's interesting parallel. It just brings it all together in a very beautiful way, this interface. Okay. To me it appears that wherever through Ayin Beis is going to bring everywhere Chassidus or Kabbalah talks about Amumutza. Because it keeps popping up from every side. So let's continue now. You want to ask something?
no, I want to ask this thing, the Moshe of the Alter Rebbe's own Chidushim, or what he heard from the man?
Good. It doesn't make a difference to me, frankly.
No, it's just...
To me, the Maggid is just as good as Alter Rebbe is just as good as the Maggid. You asked me this question. I told you, Professor Emmanuel Shachat claims, who worked a lot on all the Baal Shem Tov, Kesher Shem Tov, and Eritrea, and Maggid Varav Yankov from the Maggid. He claims that he sees the Makir of the Alter Rebbe's Chidushim, Chassidus Chabad, in Eritrea. He doesn't see it in Kesher Shem Tov. No, he doesn't see it in the Baal Shem Tov. He sees the Maggid. Haniya Cotton, I can't say I researched as much as he did. I asked a few people who told me his name. I should ask him directly, actually. Maybe I'll call him. I don't know how he's doing these days. But when you learn it, you see the Maggid, very big kids at everything. So I would like to see examples that he's referring to. Like here's a Maimon, look at the Torah, you could say it's a Vort. I'm not talking about a Vort. Baal Shem Tov is also broad in Chassidus a Vort. When you read Kesher Shem Tov, it's very, very big kids. You don't see most of Chassidus Chabad in there. Not to say Chassidus Chabad doesn't illuminate Baal Shem Tov, but you don't see the direct, except there are exceptions. I mentioned half of Ayin Beis is going to be a beard on the Maggid, on Aseh L'chosh Techat Tzetzes, and Chelik Beis. The whole thing is an explanation of the Maggid for 150 pages maybe. Parentheses all around 5 lines, 10 lines in the Maggid. But that's, I don't know if you read the Maggid, you'd be able to see it in there. So there's Nekudas in there. So look, anyway. The Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya Mipi Sofrim, Mipi Seifrim. So they say Mipi Sofrim is the Baal Shem Tov of the Maggid, and Seifrim is the Maral and the Shalah. Isaiah's Teichman. Shalah you see a lot of, you say this Chassid Chabad and Shalah, that I can testify to, I can show you. I'm a halach. Again, not necessarily the Shalah doesn't go through concepts like Tzimtzum and Kav like this, but you could see, they called Alter Rebbe Shaloid. The Shaloid. You learn Shalah is unbelievable, by the way. Shalah is very contemporary. It's very rich to read, the Shalah. He brings together, you'll see, when you read it, you see the spirit of the way we learn things. He brings together Pshat, Remez, Drush, Sod, Halacha, Kabbalah, Avodas Hashem. The Shalah is very, I don't know if you ever, it's worthwhile reading the Shalah once a week on the Parsha or something. It's very good stuff. Even when the Shalah talks Beinam Tzarim, like the Shalah is the whole Shalah on the Shalah in 3 weeks. It's Shalah.
It's four volumes now. Beautiful.
Yeah. But read the Shalah. Shalah. You ever read Shalah? Amazing stuff. It's so, and you see it resonates. It's very. You could see right away that the Alter Rebbe gleaned an approach. He's unique, the Shalah. You don't have that type of approach. He's very modern. I don't mean modern, very, very contemporary in his language. You know, he talks about things that are, he weaves it together and makes it very practical. Anyway, and Maral is more chkira, you know. But you see, of course, Maral, you see ideas, not so much the Maral style, but the Maral's analysis of ideas. So that's what we know. No one ever did a proper scholarly research of identifying the Alter Rebbe, because remember, at the end of the day, even if you remember, I showed you in Eritrea and Yonim, where he says Meraglu b'pum de Magid was to say that Akazer Kloli. If you didn't see that, you read the Magid, you don't see. I would say that 90% of what the Magid and Baal Shem Tov taught was never documented. That's what I think. I think what we have is not even 2 or 3%.
It's like a Torah Shalom of everything that the Rebbe Shalom.
Yeah, it's like a short. It would be like the, people hearing the Rebbe once saying a word once every month. You wouldn't know what he stands for. The Baal Shem Tov lived. He lived every day. He's talking to people, Talmidim. I think most of what they gave over was Baal Peh, like Torah Shebal Peh, and it was not documented. So that's why we say the Alter Rebbe, when who writes Mariel, who writes the Haskama, Rabbi Yehuda, when he writes the Haskama to Tanya, he says, "Ata Yismach Yisrael." Yeah, Rabbi Yehuda Kohen. So he said, "What means Ata Yismach Yisrael?" Now Yisrael Baal Shem Tov is Yismach, because the Alter Rebbe genumen mizog the Smetana, a real Talmud Muvik. He turned the system. So I don't know if you can identify where the Alter Rebbe where the Baal Shem Tov stops and the Alter Rebbe begins. I think he took their whole spirit. That was the disagreement with the Baruch Mezhebuzer and the Shlomo Kaliner of how he took the Baal Shem Tov. They felt it was not the Baal Shem Tov, but he felt it was. And I have to say, I have no doubt that it was. They didn't speak that way, was because that was the spirit of what, and he was makabel from them. He was makabel directly from the Maggid. And the Alter Rebbe, you see, is going nifla. So there's no way that he. I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to say is that he captured something that probably others didn't see. He was able to see the derech. And Chassidus Chabad is his chiddush on one hand. The lashon of the Rabbeim is the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov is miyased Chassidus Haklolis, and the Alter Rebbe is miyased Chassidus Chabad. So what's Chabad versus Klolis? So you have the different nekudas, You have the Atomim, Friedrich Rebbe explaining it a little, what's the difference in Kloli and Chassidus. And sometimes it says the Baal Shem Tov taught that every person could serve God, and the Alter Rebbe taught how every person can serve God. You have these Shnei Meres Hagdelim.
But the attitude from the Alter Rebbe to the Baal Shem Tov and Maggid, they are his teachers.
No, that's a shaila. That's not the question. And I don't think even if you had heard them speaking, I don't think they were speaking Chassidus Chabad as Alter Rebbe put it into Tanya and Maimorim. But he took the ruach of it. Is that it's like Rashi. What's the chiddush of Rashi? Without Rashi, you can't learn a shtickle Gemara. You can't learn a Chumash even. Rashi didn't come a chadish. Rashi just, when you read it, and on all Gedei Yisrael saw, he captured the pshat of a Gemara like nobody captured before him, and with a kitzur lashon. And he was able to reveal a dimension of Gemara that till the Rashi was. Rashi is 8 generations from the time, 9 generations later from Tanoim Amoraim. He didn't know them. But he had that ability, that Tzaruch HaKedesh, whatever you want to say, but he was mechaven in that way. And when you read Rashi, you see right away, wow, you suddenly see pshat you never would have read on your own. And the way he says it, the Kitzur Loshen. Same thing, the Rambam, they all had their strength in capturing. See, it's one thing is taking a Gemara and just reading and interpreting. Another that captures the spirit of it. Bein Ashuris. That's a far different thing. A real Talmud Muvik, a real proper student, doesn't just give you over what the teacher said. They give you over the spirit of what the teacher said. That's far more complicated. Because, someone can read you can have a brilliant guy, that's Chavek starts reading Ayin Beis. But if you never heard the Rebbe, it was Makabel, this is the Lachluchis, as they say. He never got the moisture. Right, and Arum. Then, he could be technically correct. He's a genius, but he hasn't picked up a certain subtleties, stuff like that. It's all in the subtlety at the end of the day. It's not just the text. You just need to combine subtlety. There's some people who know the subtleties and don't know the content. That's another problem. But you need to have both. It's ultimately, you need to have both. What? You want names?
No, exactly.
Shimon b'Shem Imam. There are people, there are people who have Chassidus, Chassidus who don't necessarily learn it, but they had the sense, they had an intuition.
They knew the melodies, but not the words in the melody.
In a way, yeah. Or they had a chushan and not a kishan. They could appreciate a song, but they couldn't sing. That's another thing. There are people like that for sure. So, okay, let's continue on. So we established now that Neshcheira ani v'nov. I'm dark, but beautiful. The beauty is the deeper dimension that's revealed both in Ava and Yira, love and awe, through coming down. It says, the same thing where the soul is compared to Teira. This he also says in Likutei Teira there, by the way. Souls are rooted in Teira. This is a new Indian. He hasn't brought this up till now. The Zayin Yisrael Allah b'machshava. What does it mean? Yisrael rose in his thought. Dahainu b'Teira, meaning in his thought in Teira. The Esis HaTeira hein Esis HaMachshava. The letters of Teira are letters of thought, which is what he explains in one place, another place in the Kutera B'Chukes Bahar. He says, why does it say Shesh Shishim Ribu Esis L'Teira? Zoshtevis Yisrael. But Pel, there's only 4,805. So he says, because it's Esis HaMachshava. Shishim Ribu is referring to Esis HaMachshava. Esis B'Ksav, it comes out 304. But in thought, so when you speak or you write, it's a certain number. But in thought, there's more letters. Not believable. So bottom line is that's the all of the machshava he's teaching here means all of the Teira, because Teira is Esis machshava, like it says elsewhere. And in their root souls are united, literally united, fused, mamish, literally fused with Teira. So now he's tying the triangle up even more. Remember we talked Yisrael, Araisa, Kutshabdich. Jews connected Teira through Teira to Hashem. So now he's saying there's also our connection with Teira as it is in its root and how it comes down below. So he says like this. So the same idea we just learned about Shcherani also applies not just to souls l'gabe godliness, but also souls l'gabe Teira. Even though they're rooted in Teira in their source, that's why we say every neshama has a letter in Teira. Nevertheless, there's an advantage in this connection to Teira, between the soul and Teira, when they descend below the souls. Because in their root, the way they're rooted and united and fused and joined and united in Teira, all that is only in the letters of Teira. Yeah, letters of thought, but still letters. Samach ribu is Yisrael, yesh shishim ribui. He says samach. Yeah, but he says samach. Yeah. So Rosh Tevis Yisrael is what? Yesh shishim ribui esis l'teira. There's 600,000 letters in the Teira. That's in their root. It's only letters. One second. What happens when a soul comes down below? And the souls descend below, and it connects itself, attaches itself to Teira, it binds itself to Teira. It binds itself not with the letters, but with the energy, the light of Teira. With the wisdom that is manifest in the letters. So the soul is rooted in the letters, in Beis, Reish, Aleph, Shin, whatever, the letters of Teira, Bereshis. When it comes down below and it learns Teira, down below it connects to the Eir of Teira, the meaning in the letters, the Chachma, the wisdom in the letters. We may need explanation, but let's continue reading. That's what he's saying now. And through the preface, the preparation of the service, in a form of Kala. What was Kala? Kiloyan. Kolsa Nafshi. That the soul aspires, pines, yearns, thirsts. Shemamshichim Eir Chadash. And we said through that you draw down a new energy. Remember we said Kala Achesi is a similar energy all the time. Tmidis. This is a new power. So through this type of Aveda. In other words, when we learn Teira below, we're learning it not Stamazeh. We're learning it with a deeper yearning. Because above, the Teira is, we're one with the Teira. It doesn't require a passion. This so-called passionate Kala approach, and that brings down new energy. This Amshacha. This Amshacha Chadasha of Kala, when it connects afterwards with Teira, it draws down a new revelation that's higher than Chachma. Let me clarify what this meant here. Okay, I got it. So there's two things here. First of all, it's an Eir Chadash. No. Two things. He's saying two things that happen with the Teira below. Teira above, the Neshamas above are bound to each Neshama has its root in a letter. So think of it, the letters of Teira are God's thoughts. Each Neshama is rooted there. It's like on a tree. Think of it a tree. Then it falls off the tree. It comes down into a body below. Here it's dark, shcheirani. It's disconnected.
Naveless.
That's Nevel's Chochmah Shel Teira. I'm talking about Neshamas now.
Yeah, it comes from the dices.
Navel was never melodies. That was only the.
But I don't know if it says Nevel by Neshamas. It says Nevel Teira. That Nevel Shel Maila, Chochmah, Nevel Shel Maila is Teira. Nevel's Chochmah Shel Maila is Teira, not Neshama. Yeah, now it doesn't matter. But the Neshama comes down now. It's so-called, ostensibly on a revealed level, it's dark, it's concealed. The Neshama now starts learning Teira, connects. She says, what you're getting now is not just the letter, the branch that you were attached to. You're connecting now to the wisdom of Teira, to the Eir in Teira. And furthermore, that's what he adds. Through the Hagdama Bechinas Kala, because it's coming from such a yearning, a kaloyan, a kosa, what do we say, pining. That brings a new energy. So then when he connects to Teira, he also brings down a new energy that's even higher than Chachma. So the soul below reaches Chachma, higher than letters, and even higher than Chachma, Er Chadash. That's what he's saying here. It doesn't explain exactly what. My assumption is, Pashut would be, because we learn here through a struggle, it takes effort to learn, so just like he learned before. Like with Achesi, when there's no struggle, for a soul to learn Teira above is a natural thing. It's a fish in water. It doesn't require any effort. It's pleasure. For a soul to learn Teira here, it requires overcoming challenges. You know, like it's a parnasa, you have other things. And so when you learn Teira here, you're getting the advantage of appreciating the wisdom in it. Not just, you have to dig deeper. You're appreciating the so-called wisdom within Teira, not just the asis. And furthermore, what he says, the Er Chodesh that comes from a kaloyan, from the kala that a chesi doesn't have. Yeah. And just like we spoke before, that neshama has an advantage in its connection below, where it has to reconnect and get beyond the challenge of the shcheirani, the darkness. Now he's going even further. Okay, so now we have established like this. A neshama gets deeper connection below to God. It gets a deeper connection to Teira also below. Now he's going to the next step. Teira miskashram ba'araisa. Remember we spoke that there's another thing, Teira Lishma, that's bringing down a lakus into Teira. So now he's saying the same thing with Teira. So just like, this is like almost like a new section. So just like the neshama gets an advantage as it comes down below, through its connection below, now when we say it's Arais miskashron b'kutchabrichu, same thing. Same thing is Araisa that binds itself with kutchabrichu. This is the second part of the phrase in Zohar that, just for the record, began. Where did he bring the Zohar? Here, Bir the Inyan, bottom of page 356. So it's all part of the explanation of the Zohar. Yeah. So what does he say? Like this. If you remember, he said that in the Kesher was also by Teira. Let me just refresh what we learned back in that chapter. That chapter was Kuf Ayin Hey. So if you remember, he said, why do you say Kesher by Teira and Kutchabrichu? Because Teira becomes Chachma, wisdom. And wisdom compared to Kutchabrichu is Chalkim v'chakim v'chachim yediyah. So Teira also is a Kesher, not Dveikus, in that sense. It's not quite like a soul, because the soul, we learned, gets completely concealed. Teira retains its divine nature even down below. But relatively to its source, Teira also is a Kesher, not Dveikus. So now he's applying this idea here. Yeah, here he is naveless. Because the Teira, as it comes down below, is only naveless, as we learned before. Oh, he's going to quote that. What's naveless? I see in Tanya they translate naveless as shadow. Naveless, Chochmah Shemai, they say shadow, but we definitely learned that we compared it to a fruit that falls off a tree. So it's more of a falling, an extract, or we said that, like the word dropping, but
it's the leaves
like the leaves that fall naveless. But he used before like a fruit that falls off. But why would they say in the Tanya English translation they say shadow? The shadow of wisdom above is Teira.
No, it can't be.
They use the word shadow.
Between shadow and
I'm just telling you, I saw it in Tanya. Is there any reason that Tanya would be, that navel would be a shadow? Is there any such makom? Okay, it doesn't matter, fine. Could be wrong.
Maybe a shadow is not the real thing.
Yeah, no, I understand the connection, but the word doesn't mean shadow, right? Sail. Shadow is sail.
comes up.
Yeah. Nameless is the extra one.
Sometimes maybe because leaves cast a shadow. I mean, the leaves have a, like tzila de mamnusa, like tzila like by sukkah. Sail, nameless.
Even the chumash.
Yeah. And we learned before chapter 173, 173, what was 173? Yeah, what we learned there, the Gamchin is Chachma Shalmaila, that also Chachma Shalmaila, wisdom above, supernal wisdom. Hu b'chinas nevelus, the Gam b'chinas Chachma, k'may shilamaila matzilus. So this isn't just one level. The Teda, nevelus, what's the expression? Teda is nevelus Chachma Shalmaila. And that itself, Chachma Shalmaila, is also nevelus compared to its source, higher than Atzilus. That is Chachma Shabbat the wisdom of Kesser. That we learned before in chapter 173. So in other words, you're stealing here with Teda down below is the navelus of a navelus, so to speak. Is the fallings of a falling. Imagine? Okay. We're moving the inyan al piyah now. And this inyan will be understood according to what we just discussed. The Teda Kameshi B'chachma.
That the Torah is getting more from the...
We're in the middle of reading. Let's learn that. We're in the middle of a sentence here. It's just starting to start topic. We'll move in the Inyan, I will understand the scene according to the above. The Teda K'meishi B'chachma d'Atzilus, because the Teda, the way it's in the wisdom of Atzilus, how do you b'chinas Eisius Aksav? He's explaining what does this mean, all these levels. He says the Teda in Atzilus is like letters, written letters. Shezau K'mei Dover Nesef. Written letters is like an addition, is something, an added on element. I believe that was in chapter Kufayin Gimel too, right? He brought about. Yeah, didn't he bring that there? Yeah, Eisius Teda. It's saying. I'm almost sure that's what he said it there. Okay, I'll look later. So that's it's like written letters. What's written letters? When you write letters on parchment, the ink is a dover nesef. It's an additional substance, not like chkika. The way wisdom is in keser, there it's like engraved letters, that are from within. It's from the same stone, from the same object. If you remember, we learned this subject, if you remember the three interpretations in Sfira, when he went to the highest interpretation, the way it's in Keser, so he spoke also about this.
The white around
that, and then he went even further, there's also Me'ever, many levels. So basically, we have now the difference between Chachma and Keser. Chachma of Atzilus, one is written letters, one is like engraved letters. That's why the Teda, even that it's not Atzilus above, is still naveless. Because the written letter is like a novel, is like a dover nesev, is like a navel, is like a fallen leaf or fallen element from Chachma as it is.
I would say drip drop.
Okay, fine. Drops. I say droppings, but droppings.
Drops,
yeah.
No,
But I'm Ashikosev.
From the faucet.
Yeah.
It's the same water, but it's only coming in a very slow drips.
Yeah, diminished. I'm Ashikosev b'tereir. Okay. What did I miss? Where? I read the Aval. I already read it. It's just Achkika. Sheminei obey. V'ayim Ashikosev b'tereir. Vehisofes ba'abiyur habeis d'v'shamayim kisi. Or it's a vehisofes. Look in Tereir and the Hisofes, in the explanation, the second explanation on the Maimer HaShamayim kisi. I have to look there to see what he says. So we have now two levels in Tereir. Engraved letters, Asius, but still Asius. Remember, it's not. We actually have four letter levels here. Do you identify four levels? Written letters, engraved letters, Chachma, and the Chodesh that's even higher than Chachma. So now we're going to understand it. So above, Chachma Vatzilus is written letters. Chochmah of Kesed, it's naveless of Chochmah of Kesed, which is engraved letters. Now, when the soul comes, when the Torah comes down below, here we go, and through its descent below of Torah. Nimshach Mubchinas Atzmus Ein Sof, Gili Er Chodesh Mamish. There comes drawn down a new level from Atzmus Ein Sof, which is Mamish, Mamish reveals literally a completely new energy. I would say Er Chodesh Mamish. Because the same Er Chodesh he spoke on top, he didn't mention Er Chezer here. Gili Er Chezer Mamish? No, Er Chodesh. Mamish wouldn't be fitting on Chezer. It's Er Chodesh Mamish. Now, this needs a little explanation here. Remember, even though, does he say it? I hope he says it. If not, I'm going to have to say it. Okay. They had Teira. This explains what Teira they had. They had Teira the way it's not Silus or Kesed. So the question is, what's the Chiddush of Matan Teira if the Ovis had Teira? So we learned Klot. It's Er Chodesh. The Teira they had was Teira as it relates to existence. God looked into the blueprint for sure precedes the world. So it's not a Pella that there was a Teira before. Teira was not, by Matan Teira wasn't a new document that was created.
The world was created with that, right?
Right, so the world was created with it. The Ovis had inside information, and they were able to access that, as we said, like the code. They were able to access the source code through their Aveda, however you want to interpret. But what they got was the Teira as it creates a world. But if you want the Er Chodesh and Teira, that Matan Teira v'Yered Hashem al-Hasina is the Atzmus, the source of Teira. The Eibishter who wrote the blueprint now gave the Teira to earth. He didn't just give the same, what was there. Obviously it was the same Teira, but he gave a new dimension of it. That's the Er Chodesh and Teira, which is higher than the letters. It's because the letters, the Ovis can't go and find more than what was given than the letters. But the Eibishter could infuse the letters. He's the one that wrote it. So there's a level of Chochmah and Teira that the Eibishter, she's saying the Er Chodesh, that was revealed when the Teira came down below. Yidasil Lamata, almost positively he means Matan Teira here. He doesn't mean Yidasil Lamata B'chlal. Yeah. Achayishin Hazeh. However, this advantage, this quality, discussions HaTeira be'Ein Sof Lamata Nasa Yidei Neshamas Yisrael. Yeah, this goes back to David, fine. This Yisrin, no, one second, I just should say, by Matan Teira was Pamachas Deibish to V'Yered Hashem Sinav, and Yamaschil. He means now, afterwards. How do we connect to that Ein Sof? How discuss Teira be'Ein Sof? That happens below through Neshamas Yisrael. Shaydeish Neshamas Yisrael miskashram belakus ubeteira. Through the fact that the souls of Israel bind themselves to godliness and Teira. Through this they draw down a new revelation into Teira. A new energy. This is called Divrei Teira. This is the meaning when we say Lasis is called Divrei Teira Azeis. Right? There's an expression, number of places. Is it more than once? Lasis is called Divrei Teira. I remember more than once in Chumash, right? Lasis is called Divrei Teira. Where's that passage?
The whole volume is full with that.
Right.
No.
So this is the meaning. Lasis is called Divrei Teira. What means Lasis? He's teaching Kipshute Lasis to Ufmachen. Shin some Eisin is HaTeira. Lasis is called Divrei Teira Azeis as a question. It should say L'Kayim is called Divrei Teira Azeis. By Lasis we mean also creating. That's why the expression Eisin is the same Baila. Ishik Sheda, Eisin is the same Baila. Right. So Eisin could mean she fulfills, or Eisin means she creates. So Lasis, when it says Lasis is called, he's teaching Lasis is called Divrei Teira. So Eisin, they actually create the HaTeira. Shemamshichim Amshach Zein and Sev B'Teira. They're building the Teira. They're creating something. They're contributing to the Teira. And it's understood that this advantage, this superiority, this quality that is contributed, that's infused into Teira below, hugam legabi kameshu l'mayla mishresh, hugam legabi kameshu l'mayla mishreshes be'erin sev baruch. In other words, he's going even further. it's a yisun, it's an advantage, even compared to the way the Torah is rooted in Eid Ein Sof Baruch Hu, not just in Chochmah of Atzilus. In other words, even in the highest levels, as we shall explain. This is very fundamental. Yeah, this is the whole point where we say, Rabbi Bar Nachmani, Psak Din Dafka Lamata. This is the whole power of Torah Lamata, the power of making a psak. And this is the meaning, this is the union of Chacham B'chutz Truna, which literally means wisdoms you will, it's like, Truna is like a rina,
Jubilate.
The literal meaning, Chacham B'chutz Truna, is like when you say, Meheri Yisham Bari Yehuda.
Sing the wisdoms.
We'll sing the wisdoms right out to the outside. We will declare your wisdoms. Truna is Lashon Asid? Shenimshach b'chinas hatainug shalamayla ma'achachma. How you teach it? Chachma is bachutz teruna. Teruna is tainug. So you're drawing down not just chachma, you're singing the chachma. That means you're jubilating or celebrating. That means you're drawing down from tainug that's higher than that's higher than wisdom. So chachma you can learn, you can sit and learn, but you say teruna. That's the diuk, maybe. B'chutz. The dafke b'chutz, the way neshama comes down lamata, in chutz. That's where you actually can sing chachma. Maybe it's connected to Belayla Shira Imi, Shashrim Lefanov, maybe. Yeah, probably. And this is created through Israel, through their connection, through the godliness and Torah. Through this becomes his kashrus. It binds and unites Torah in the level with Atzmus Ein Sof, the core essence of the infinite divine light. May he be blessed. Nimtza. So we find from this, we conclude from this, Nimtza. Sheyesh yisrin be'iskashus lamata heim be'iskashus anashamas belakus u'b'Torah. Two things. So we find from this, he's summing up, that down below, the connection below, there's an advantage in the connection below, both in the connection of the souls into godliness and Torah. That's the kala, a kaloyan, that they expire, they're pine, they are drawn into Atzmus Ein Sof Baruch Hu, to the core infinite light, and the new revelation that's in the Torah. This is the second level that we discussed earlier in chapter 176. Let me look back at Kufayim Vov. Do you remember what he was referring to? Yeah. There were two Eifanim on how tefillah. He asked the question in chapter 176, what is the contribution of Torah compared to tefillah? So first he said, the first thing is that tefillah is in the form of rotzi and not shuv. Second thing, that tefillah is only a godliness relates to existence, and Torah brings down a new dimension. Right?
That I don't remember the mention of Kabbalah.
Hold on a second.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So he's saying that this, what he's saying now, that the Gilui Chodesh, that's the second Eifin that he explained there, that Ratzit Tefillah B'chinas Madrei Gevei Yeser, Dainu B'chinas Kala. Oh, this is weird. This is something. Kolshkin Hamshach, there was Kasher,
He's redefining the Ratzit.
The second Eifin, okay, you know what? Let's skip the parentheses for now. Let me read till the end of this, and then I'll go back to the parentheses and needs explanation. So he says, so Nimtza, we find from this that this Kashrus, the connection below, is an advantage both in the connection of the souls into godliness and in Torah. Because it causes it to expire and to to pine and be absorbed, dissolved into Atzmus Ein Sof, and by Gili Er Chodesh B'Teira, and also Gili Er Chodesh B'Teira. How does that fit in? Because he just said Gili Er Chodesh B'Teira because the first piece, the second piece below here, because it reaches not just the Asias but also the Chochmah and Er Chodesh, so it brings the Er Chodesh and Teira. V'hein b'iskashus v'iraisa t'tatera b'elakus, and also in the connection of Teira and godliness, shezeu ba'atzmus ein sof. So we have two things that are happening here. The first thing is that the neshama is below Shcheirani, Vanova, they reach a higher level of Kiloyim. They also, when they learn Teira, like he says, that even though it's rooted in the letters of Teira, through coming below, they get connected to the wisdom of Teira. And through the Kala, they bring an Er Chodesh, a new thing. That's one thing. Then there's a second thing. The same thing, connection of Teira and Elokus. The Teira below above is Chochmah. So by Neshamis, it works like this. Instead of the letters being connected to letters, they reach the Chochmah, and they reach even a higher energy that's higher than Chochmah. Teira itself is not letters. Teira itself is Chochmah above. Teira is letters, written letters, or engraved letters. And through Teira coming down below, it reaches the level that's higher even than engraved letters. It reaches the level of Ein Ein Sof Mamish, Atman Ein Sof. And that's revealed through Eden too. And this is the meaning of the Zohar. V'zeu tlas kishim miskasharon. He's now concluding the Zohar that we learned in chapter, what he began in chapter 175. This is the meaning of three bonds, miskasharon. There are three bonds that get bound. Da b'da, one in another. Kutchabrichu v'araisa v'Yisrael. God, Teira, and Israel. V'hu iskashus haneshama b'Teira. This is referring to the connection of soul and Teira, and v'Teira b'atzmus ein sof. And the Teira in atzmus ein sof. V'aseda b'zehu, and the order in this is the tchila miskasharon Yisrael b'araisa. First, Israel binds itself in Teira. Like he spoke about, that Teira, first you learn Teira in order for what it impacts on you, to connect godliness to you. And this brings a higher level of the divine, and also a higher level of Chodosh and Teira. And then comes the next, and through the bond of the souls of Israel and Teira, in these two ways, what are the two ways?
One was Yom Shach was commensurate to Zratzu, and the other was beyond it. It wasn't commensurate, it was beyond. The first side was the Api.
Where are you getting these two ways from? Where are you quoting? Huh? No. V'aydeis kashus b'teira. Who says those are the Bizafanim? I don't know if that's correct. No, I don't think it's correct. I'm not sure. I mean, he refers to in the parentheses. I'm not sure which two ways he means. Here, 1 second. Two ways. Yeah, the
Chitzenius, the Kala, and the Primus. The Chesi is Chitzenius, and then the one you said right over here, I think.
No, because he's talking about...
No. I think what he means is, he means the two ways is first you do it for your own purpose, and then you do it for the Teira, l'shem ha-Teira. That's what I think he means.
This one, the Yesh Beis Madreg is Achisi v'Kala. Through these two ways.
No. I think his Kashan Shamash B'Teira would be the two ways that he spoke about at the beginning of chapter Kufayin Vov. Look at line 2. The basic Teira is Beis Efanim. In chapter 176, page 358. That's what he's referring to, for sure.
Again, though, he repeats the idea.
No, that's not. That's different. That's two ways. Find him to explain. The word Eifin just means two ways. There he's explaining two ways of the advantage of Teira on Tefillah. There's nothing to do with Asik HaTeira. That's not related. It's referring to these two ways. One that you learn in order to bring godliness into your life, means a kara daita. One you learn in order to bring God into Torah. That's what he's saying now. By the connection of the bonding of Torah into two ways of learning, Naseis kashrus the Torah b'kush creates a connection, the bond of Torah in godliness. And that's the new divine revelation that's revealed and that's drawn down into the Torah. Just a second. I'm going back to Kufa Involved. Very important here. It's for sure those two ways. One is Laravis Tzimene, and one is Adaita the Nafshi, that is. Another is to be Lishma. To be Mamshech Elikus.
Here it says his conscious, not his Elvaturba, based upon him. That's not really his conscious, that's just waking himself up in the morning to talk.
With all due respect, read it again. Read chapter 176. The whole chapter is two ways of learning Torah. That's the whole point.
In the second way, it has two ways also.
I don't know about that. I don't know where. You show me where? I don't know where it says that.
Okay. I'll try to find it. Here's right here.
That's not that. Those two I find have nothing to do with this. It's a whole difference. It's almost like a footnote.
Here, this and that.
Yeah.
They're separate.
There's nothing related to this. There he's asking, why doesn't tefillah bring down godliness? Why do you need Torah also?
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with this discussion. We're talking two ways to learn Torah. This is a different discussion. That's a discussion of how the advantage of Torah over tefillah. One is that it's shuv, and one is that it's Eira, that's l'mayla elimus. It's completely unrelated. But there's another element that after davening, there's also two dimensions. You can learn Torah to quench your thirst, which is again for you, or you can learn Torah l'shma to bring godliness into Torah. Those are the two things he's referring to.
But that, even though that he describes that they're want to satisfy his thirst, it doesn't bring out these two different ways that the Hamshach Torah happen quite the two different ways of looking at the way davening is attached to learning.
You're confusing matters here. We're talking about two ways of learning Torah. One to help you, one is to bring godliness into Torah. Torah l'shma. That's what we're addressing right now. This has nothing to do with davening. So the inside is familiar with
It's all at the end of Kufa Involved.
Okay, good. So what we have here is as follows. It's a little confusing because he's bringing a lot of subjects in here together, mixing together. So let me just sum it up the best way I could sum it up. The whole theme is to explain Havayeh Etzlei Omein is also Oiman. Al Tikra Omein Ela Oiman. That the Torah, as being nurtured by God, being Shashuim Lefanov, that then ends up nurturing Neshamas Yisrael. That's how we began the whole subject in Kuf Ayin Hey, 176. Yeah, the bottom of the page. To explain this, he went into Tlas Kishon. He says his kashrus is of two separate things, and he explains how that works with neshamas, because as they come down below, they're separate, and they connect. And how it is in Torah, because as it comes into Chochmah, and has to be connected back to Chakam B'lei B'Chochmah Yediyah. Remember we spoke about Chochmah Nesiv, it's a narrow path. Okay. And that's what Torah is called, Torah Shebiksav, Esis Aksav. It's written, Dover Nesef Al Etzem. It does say Dover Nesef. And this is the difference between Esis and Esis Echkik, clear. Yeah. Nevertheless, it connects to Atzmus, Kedimya Kesher Nefesh B'Teira, and this happens through Yisrael. That's the key thing. You see, with Yisrael, the key thing is that there's two different connections here. The connection of souls to God, the connection of Teira to God. Now, souls connect to God through Teira, but then there's the other side. When the souls, the Teira also needs connection to God, and that's through souls also. So the souls are really doing two things. They're connecting to God through Torah, and they're connecting God to Torah by their learning it. So there's the two ways of learning. You can learn Torah. And you're learning it for your benefit. That's the Pirush HaPashut, as he said. You're learning Torah to bring Elikus Adaita Denafshe. Then there's a level of learning Torah where you're learning Torah in order to bring godliness into Torah. Because Torah also needs a connection, a kesher. Because you could say Torah doesn't need a connection, it's connected. No, it does, because Torah also descends. Nevlis Chachma Shalom Ayla Torah. That's the two things that are going on in general. And then there comes the whole explanation how it works with the letters and all that. So the Neshamas come Nashcherani, they come down, they darkened. Through their Kaloyin, Kala, they develop even a deeper passion and connection. And the same thing in learning Torah. When they learn Torah now, they are in the letters of Torah. By them learning Torah below, they connect to the Chachma of Torah. And by learning in a form of Kala, Ir Chodesh, they bring into themselves. And into Torah, obviously. But then comes the next step. What happens now with Torah? Torah too is first letters, written letters. It's engraved letters in Kesed. And by even learning Torah, they also bring the higher level of Elikus Atzmus into Torah. And that's the kesher, the second kesher, the kesher of Torah.
So we're saying that even though the Torah is Chachma Shalom Ayla, it still needs a connection to Elikus. Right? We're saying that Torah.
And the truth is that so both ways that Jew learns Torah, whether he's learning Lishma, Shalei Lishma, even of Avila Daita the Nafshe, he's also bringing Elikus into Torah. It's not his kavanah. His kavanah is for him, but he's bringing Elikus into Torah because the fact of the matter is, we just said the Kala, because he's down below. And down below, he has a deeper passion. He's reaching a level that's higher, yeah?
He's only bringing the Torah Tzibus into this world.
I don't know what you mean by that. No.
He's not Mamshik from...
Who says that? Who says that? No. Er Chodesh, it says. It seems so. I'm looking, Mamshik Er Chodesh, Bechinas Kala. Yeah, and then there's a second thing. I don't think he limits it. Adaita the Nafsha does not limit. Listen, when you're learning for your own purpose, obviously the Elikus is connected to you.
Saying it in a few lines that this is also part of it.
Now you could argue that when a person is learning for his own purpose, you could say it's Elikus. So we talked Torah as it relates to you. But the bottom line is because you're learning it below, there is an Er Chodesh involved. Clearly, there's an Er Chodesh. He doesn't really spell it out. There's this issue. One second, let me just see. Let's see the end of chapter 1, Kufayin Hey. Yeah, you could argue that it's confusing. In some places it seems that it is connected to that.
And the only movement is from the higher level, you know.
I have to review it again to clarify this point, because at the end of chapter 175 and then 176, beginning of 176, he says, "Hini amshachazu hu inyan limudat Torah l'shma." This amshachim are bringing down a higher dimension in Torah is l'Torah l'shma. But then when things start rolling downward, start speaking, in other words, about how we actually learn, it appears. I have to review those chapters again.
You could look in the Kitzur, Shin Samach. This final one.
So where does he say this? Is through Teda L'Shma. Yeah, it sounds like Teda L'Shma, but then he's saying here two Efanim. But say the discussion some Teda, but Beis Efanim not discussion. Yeah, but here at the end of this chapter, how is it consistent with what he just said here? Right, we just read that but Beis Efanim you create discussions of Teda.
That's right, like what I said. Learning after davening.
What is that? How does that answer the question?
Because you're learning two ways after davening. Your mamshim something commensurate, or mamshim something that's beyond.
What's that? But commensurate. So that's the Shema, not L'Shma.
I mean, it's commensurate to the Ratzah. What was the Ratzah? The Ratzah is you want.
No, but that's not L'Shma. That's in order to quench your thirst. He said clearly it's not L'Shma. So then, if it's not L'Shma, then it's not those two ways.
They don't have either. They don't have either a day of either night and then for yourself. You don't have that, or you don't have the first way of the second level. All you have is the third level.
It says clearly to quench your thirst after davening is be'efana aleph hanal. Shakavona basically l'ravis simon. He says that clearly. On chapter on page 360.
Okay, so that only is the third one.
But so how does that? But the problem is, it seems that only Torah L'Shma brings down a new energy into Torah, and here he says bebeis efanim. Okay, you know what? I'm going to have to review it again. So this is a question that needs to be understood.
In Samach sounds that the Limud Torah L'Shma
Are both what?
Are also the Adaita D'Nafshe.
Adaita D'Nafshe means the opposite of L'Shma. How could you say that? It doesn't say that. I have the Kitzah. What are you saying? Two different things. Mikora, meaning before the Torah L'Shma.
Yeah. You have to read the fifth line.
You're not reading it.
Read the fifth line of the Kitzur.
You're not reading it right. You're not reading.
The fifth line of the Kitzur.
There are two ways in Lishma.
What are the two ways? No, that's just not L'Shma. That's for sure not. Where do you see that? It's exact opposite. The Mikora, that's not Limud Torah L'Shma. Mikora, initially you don't learn L'Shma. That's the whole meaning. Then comes L'Shma. Read on, you'll see. We're saying Limud Torah Shekinah. V'achrat filu Limud Torah L'Shma. You're saying L'Shma, everything is L'Shma? No, it's not correct. No. The whole chapter is the opposite of what you're saying. Read the beginning, he can't contradict himself. It's like a matana. Okay, I'll be mine it. I don't want to jump. I have to study it again. The parentheses is what bothers me now. So then it says like this.
Speaking, the Shalei L'Shma means that you want to become a gadol, you want to become a rav, you want to.
No, but that's what here Shalei L'Shma means. This is Shalei L'Shma means that you're doing it for bringing a lakus into you. That's what he means here. Yeah, that's for sure. It's not. I'm a chassidim kene is L'Shma. This is
it's a deeper level of L'Shma.
Yeah, he doesn't call it Shalei L'Shma. He calls it Mikor Adaita D'Nafshe. Yeah. The only thing is, he said there were two levels of Adaita D'Nafshe. There's Adaita D'Nafshe before davening. That's mamish to wake you up. Then there's Adaita D'Nafshe after davening to quench the thirst that davening created. And then there's L'Shma mamish Yimamshech. The question on the table here is to bring down Er Chodesh and Torah. Is it after L'Shma, which seems to be the pshat in the earlier chapter, and here it seems to say through both these discussions. Unless you say discussions, nas discussion. That's here he says Gili Er Chodesh and Nimshach B'Torah is through both levels. Or you could say that maybe there's no question that even Shalei L'Shma, meaning Adaita D'Nafshe, also connects Kudsha B'Richu B'Torah. I have to go over it again. It's fine. Let me see the parentheses now. He says like this. I don't understand the parentheses at all, to be very honest. Maybe the secret lies in this parentheses.
talking about how it's already tefillah.
In Perek Kufay involved, he spoke firstly to Efanim and Limud Torah. Then he asked a question. If Limud Torah before davening is just a warm up, and tefillah is really the Ava V'yira's full blast, full blown, so what's the chiddush of Torah after davening? That's the question he asked in Kufay involved. And he answered with Beis Efanim. First thing he said, that tefillah is rotzi. It's not settled. It's not shuv. It's a state of restlessness. It's a state of running.
You don't have what you want.
Yeshem Beis Efanim, that's the thing. So he's asking, what's the chiddush in this kashrus zeis of, we're talking now, yeah.
Here is saying that.
What's this kashrus Torah over tefillah? So, first answer is rotzei and shuv. Good. Got it? A second. The whole arich is there. The davening can only reach to a godliness that relates to existence, and the Yoram Keren Anme is not part of these bonus. Only what he said, Heidu Aleretz B'Shamayim, and in Torah you have these kashrus with Elikuz that's higher than Elamis. That's Eifin 2. So he says clearly. Yeah. Because through davening, through a Tzadi Gomer even is not bottled b'tzis l'gamri. When a person learns Torah, he's nechlalus miyichadus b'yichud Gomer. Ein sof mamish. He says, "Ein ze lohoyer nafshe." V'henu gam lo b'chin samshachos eram zeh al okein kabol schar. Yeah. Kima de esikater is kasu be'erater nimshach hamshachos ein sof beter. When be'esikater shalei ein b'chin zdei lev. That was semenik k'mei from now. If an aleph, Vagila de eskater shachkach de eskater bezel nashinga beifna zein v'dei larav simin nak lahamshich gili atzmas. So then now he's putting this parenthesis. Shazau eifin abeishin is bar le'el b'sarotz tefillah b'madrei gavei yeser. He's learning pshat in the second eifin a little different. No, I don't know if it's different. He's saying that's what I'm reading back. 1 second. Let me just see. No, because he says something there interesting. He says, "Kima de esikater dagam shebetfili hoye b'chinas kiruv harei ein ze b'chinas gili mamish kanal v'agil de esikater she'acher kach harei ein esikater b'zel larav es tzemene." Hashenken be'efen hazeh. Maybe he's saying like this. There he said the first reason was because tefillah was rotzei, and the Torah is shuv. The second eifin, tefillah is not rotzei. That's maybe what he means. It's a higher rotzei, but it's shaykh le'elamis. That's the chesed, and Torah is atzmus ein sof. Maybe that's what he's adding here. That the second interpretation, second eifin there. In other words, what does the second eifin add over the first eifin? Once you said Torah is rotzei, tefillah is rotzei, and Torah is shuv, what do you need a second explanation? Because maybe there's a higher level of tefillah that's even a higher rotzei. Rotzei tefillah b'madrei gavei yeser. The handbechin is kala. It's a form of kala. And then the chiddush of Torah is not the shuv l'gabe rotzei. The chiddush of Torah is that it's a higher, it's er chodosh. That's not shaykh le'elamis. That's what's my v'kolshkin hamshach v'izkashem and sev shebetera.
So that's too funny.
This parenthesis needs a lot of biur. It's very, very, very bit kitzur. Because he called it there. There was two efanim. The two efanim explaining Torah l'gabe tefillah. No, because we have to go back to chapter 176. Should we finish the mimer here? Let me finish the mimer already. What time is it? Okay, no, we'll stop here. Okay, we'll stop here if you don't mind. Hello. So we finished chapter 178. Now at the end of the mimer, we did pages 363 and 364. We still have to do the conclusion of Ekev, and we have a few questions in this chapter. Okay.